Hi, I'm Dana, and this is episode 2 of Learning to be Autistic. The point of this series is basically that I got my autism diagnosis and then realised I'd been masking my autism for most of my life. So I'm figuring out how to be my natural authentic self as a person, as a human, as an autistic person, an autistic human, and that's what this series is. So let's just dive right into it. For this episode, I really wanted to talk about sensory issues because it's another thing where I didn't think I had that many sensory issues. I know I definitely had some, but neurotypical people have some as well. I didn't think it was going to be enough that it'd like play into my autism diagnosis at all. And I also didn't realise just how much I struggled with some of them. Like a big part of learning to be autistic for me has been figuring out that when I feel really anxious or really uncomfortable or really angry, there is a reason there. And I've spent my entire life being told that there isn't one. So I've come to think that like I just have bizarre mood swings when that's not the case. A lot of the time it's because of sensory issues. I just never ever realised it. Now this is all going to be from my opinion, my experience from what I've been able to find online. So I'm not claiming that this is perfectly factual from a medical standpoint. This is my experience, what I found from my research and so on and so forth. And considering that when you search for like sensory issues or help with sensory issues or what sensory issues are, it pretty much exclusively gives you advice for young children. So even if I can just start this conversation between some adults and someone who can do it better than me takes over, that's fine. So we're going to start with just what are sensory issues, I guess. Obviously we have like the 5 senses that everyone's heard about, which are taste, touch, sight, smell and sound. And then there's a bunch of other ones that are still kind of being researched. I don't know how many there are. I'm not a researcher, but it's things like how much pressure to use and where your limbs are positioned and if you're facing upright or upside down, things like that. We sense a lot with our bodies. There's a lot around us and a lot about our bodies that we sense all the time. And for a lot of autistic people, being autistic comes along with sensory processing disorder. Now, sensory processing disorder is not exclusive to autism. There's a bunch of other neurodiversities that come along with it or can come along with it, and it can also be its whole own thing. And of course, every autistic person is different. Some people might not have any, or at least not very many, sensory issues. But as far as I can tell, it's pretty widely accepted medically and in the community that if you're autistic, you probably have sensory processing disorder. And once I took a bit of time to think about things and to recognise things and reflect on things, I was like, yep, I sure do. As with a lot of things when it comes to autism in females, I think I didn't notice a lot of my sensory things because they were sort of just seen as little quirks that I had. They weren't seen as like, this is an autistic trait, this is something that isn't normal. They were just seen as little quirks. I think the best way to organise this video a little bit is if I do a quick rundown of what some of my sensory issues were as a child and are now, and then how they make me feel, what the sensory overload is like, what sensory issues I like to have. As always, it's to educate neurotypicals or to relate to other autistic people, and of course to open the discussion to more autistic adults, because I'm sick of everything being about children. Like, sure, we need to help them out, but come on, like, they don't just turn 18 and disappear or magically become neurotypical. We're here too. As a child, my main sensory issues were that I hated anything being on my feet, be that shoes, socks, tights, anything. I did not like it. I did not and do not like bright lights. Bright lights are not for me, do not enjoy. As a child, one thing that I didn't realise until literally today was a sensory issue was that I was always the one that played too rough, the one that took things too far. Because I just couldn't tell like how much force I was putting onto things or how much force I was using. And then I was also like a lot bigger than the other kids, so it was a lot worse than it should have been. Being anywhere noisy and having someone talk to me was, as a child and still is, an absolute nightmare. And sitting still, having to sit either still or in a certain position in school, and to a degree now, not a good time. Thankfully, in my adult life, there's very few situations where I'm sort of forced to do anything, so I can pretty much avoid my sensory issues, which has let them become a much less impactful thing to me. So at this point, although like I still constantly sit with my feet up or my legs crossed, something to that degree, there's no one here telling me that I shouldn't be. So it's no longer a sensory issue because it's just how I can sit. I can always sit like this, it's fine. However, I have a lot of sounds, like when you're in a bar or a club or even just in that kind of area and they empty like all of the glass bottles into a bin. That noise like makes me so angry immediately off the bat. Cutlery scraping, I cannot stand. If someone does that in a restaurant, ugh. Extremely like tight fitting clothes. Like I don't even mean like tight, like too tight. I mean like the rib stuff that really clings to your body. Anything bodycon cannot do. Sirens and alarms still massively get to me in the exact same way they did as a kid. I hate them. Anything that's that like loud, high-pitched warning sort of noise, it really just bothers me massively. Do not enjoy. There's definitely more. There's 100% more that I can't currently think of or haven't yet learned. But we'll leave it there for now and go into how it feels. Like, how do sensory issues feel to people? For me, because obviously, please keep in mind, this is all my experience. For me, most sensory things give a different reaction. So there's some things like sirens and alarms make me really angry. They really piss me off. Like, I'm not angry at them. I'm not angry at the situation. I'm not angry at anything. They just make me angry. Like cutlery scrapes and like the bottles breaking, like I mentioned, it's like fight or flight. Like even thinking about it sends shivers down your spine and it's just so deeply uncomfortable. But a lot of sensory issues aren't just uncomfortable, like they're kind of the nicer ones. Things like eye contact, physically painful for me. Like it feels like every single muscle in my body is contracting to the point of pain when I make eye contact. And similarly, if you're talking to me in a place that's got music on or a place where there's a lot of chatter and sounds, like in a supermarket or something, I have no clue what you're saying. I will be like staring at your lips trying to lip read. I don't know what's being said. It just doesn't go in. There's so many noises and I find it just impossible to differentiate between the noises enough to be able to hear what someone's saying, because every sound is equally as loud and as important. And I just can't, oh sorry, hi Jodie. I have no way of being able to differentiate. I think that's the best way I can go to describe it actually. A lot of sensory issues, it's like they are overwhelming, because something that to a neurotypical person would be so small, our brain just can't focus on anything but, you know, perhaps like everyone's been in a situation where you're in your house and someone on the street's fire alarm or car alarm or something alarm is going off and it's just going and going and going. And eventually neurotypical people just tune that out. They can just ignore it. They can just turn the TV up a little bit and not hear it anymore. I can put the TV up as loud as it goes and I can still hear that car alarm. I can still hear that dog barking. I can still hear my boyfriend doing something upstairs. None of the sounds are less important to my ears or to my brain. They are all heard and processed at the same time. And it's just way too much. You know, and like the physical pain that comes with discomfort sometimes, like with eye contact, that can be a very genuine physical pain in that, for example, when I was in school, I had all sorts of eye tests and stuff. Ow. I had all sorts of eye tests and all sorts of stuff because I was getting horrendous headaches. And everyone was like, no, she can see fine, it's not her vision, like you're gonna have to have something else checked. And I saw doctors and I saw this person, I saw that person, and there was nothing wrong with me. And it's a case of, well, knowing that I'm an autistic person, if you want me to sit in a room with a load of screaming children and fluorescent lights that I can hear and that are way too bright, to the point where I feel like I need sunglasses half the time, I'd be getting headaches as an adult too. There's a physical difference in our brains that means that things that wouldn't bother someone else in the slightest are all we can experience in that moment. They're all that can be led into our minds. It's all that there is. Like, I really struggle to wear things that come up to and stop here because it doesn't hurt. It can be a really loose fit, but it hurts. It's too much in there. It's panic inducing. I want to tear it off. And the same with the bodycon stuff. It feels like someone's grabbed you and given you this massive bear hug that you can't escape. Like, you just want to get it off. And a lot of the time, it's a case of you're a 10-year-old on your way to your cousin's christening and your parents are not letting you take that damn dress off for anything. You know, I think maybe this is why a lot of us don't, or from what I've seen, a lot of autistic people in adulthood don't really discuss sensory issues, because we can control our outside environment most of the time to not have to experience the ones that are painful or the ones that are most uncomfortable. Whereas children aren't provided with that same autonomy. And, you know, a lot of autistic adults aren't being provided with that same autonomy either, and that's a massive issue. But for those of us that are and do have that autonomy, we can make the choices that mean we don't have to suffer through them quite as much. And, you know, there's some things that I'm never going to be able to avoid, like lights and people talking when there's music on and cutlery scraping on a plate. Like there's sensory issues that you cannot avoid, but there's so many that you can. And there's so many where you get the bodily autonomy to be able to just sit how you want, or to be able to write how you want, or whatever. And suddenly that's not a sensory issue anymore, because no one, you know, as a full grown adult woman, no one is coming over to me to be like, sit properly, put your legs down, sit up straight, put your arms down. You know, it's just not happening. But that also means that sometimes when I do find out what my sensory issues are, they're either, number one, something that are just impossible to get around. Like, at some point, I have to go to the supermarket. I can try and order online all I want, but at some point we've run out of cat food and we're not ready to do a full shop yet. And it's a nightmare. But that's where you can get things like Flare. And that's where you can keep your earbuds in, put sunglasses on. And it's not ideal, but I'm definitely learning ways around the ones like that. But number two, there's definitely still lots of sensory things that I have never ever picked up on that probably affect me day to day. Because almost every day at some point I'll be like, oh crap, I suddenly feel really sad, or really excited, or really just anxious for no reason. And that's probably my sensory issues kicking up a fuss, because I had to suppress them and mask them for so long that I don't know what a lot of them are. I don't know what triggers a lot of these feelings. And it's been a whole thing of figuring out the ones that I have figured out. I think the most important thing to say though is that sensory issues, they're genuine, you know? Everyone is different, everyone's brain's a little bit different. And just because you're not feeling overwhelmed, or because something seems completely average to you and the people that you're usually around, that does not mean that to someone else it's not completely too much. That doesn't mean to someone else it's not painful. It doesn't mean it's not making someone else incredibly uncomfortable. And these are all important things to figure out and to think about and to keep in mind when it comes to other people, you know? When it comes to anybody, that's the way they are. But especially when it comes to autistic people, just because it's not understood to a lot of people, just because a lot of other people can cope with whatever, that autistic person can't, or this autistic person can't, or I can't. We're all different and we're all unique, and everyone deserves their feelings to be validated and respected, even if other people don't understand them. And finally, I think it's important to have a small discussion at the end here of what you can do to try and alleviate those feelings and to sort of recover after you've had to go through a situation where your sensory needs weren't met or appreciated or understood, or you know what I'm saying, I think. I can't think of the words, I've been filming for a while now. So personally, I tend to have a shower if I can. Doesn't always happen, I'll be honest with you, because executive dysfunction, it's a lot of steps to have a shower. So I try to have a shower. If not, I at least wash my face, maybe brush my teeth, wash my hands if that's what I can manage. Because then I feel that bit cleaner. It feels like I've washed something away from that situation. And then I watch something that comforts me. It varies. Chances are it's Ashes to Ashes, Doctor Who or Lord of the Rings. That's why so many of us have those comfort things. They really do comfort us. That's how I cope with a lot of things. I come home, I block out the world, I wash it off, and then I watch something that brings me extreme comfort. Stimming can also really help. If you want to hear more about my stims and you haven't already watched the first episode, you should. Like I say, it'll be linked somewhere. But stimming is massively like realising that I do stim and realising that pretty much any repetitive physical thing that I enjoy doing can work as a stim has been very nearly life-changing. I used to come home and spend like 3 hours just feeling anxious and uncomfortable after being in the outside world. And I figured out I can spend 20 minutes just like stimming my little fucking heart out and then I feel okay again. It's incredible. It's you know, if those stimming tendencies hadn't been fucking like masked and told off out of me, I could have gone my entire life feeling better that fucking quickly and not waited until I was 24, really. Shit. But stimming is a massive one. And you know, however you stim is probably gonna help. And if you're like me and thought that maybe you didn't have any stims or very limited stims, try some others out. There's loads out there, and I found a lot of them feel really great. And finally, possibly the weirdest one I do is I just lay down on the floor, just flat on my back, relax everything for a bit. And it's not as good as the other two. I'd rather do the other two, but it helps. I don't know what it is. It's normally when I'm like extra tired and I just don't have the energy to like have a shower and then like set up the TV, turn on the TV, find the thing I want to watch. I don't know what I want to watch. When the other options are just scrapped, essentially, I'll lay down on my back on the floor for a bit. I just stare at the ceiling, and half hour later I'm back up and at it. I'm like ready for the world again. I'm never ready for the world, but I'm back to the general state that I was before whatever went wrong with my sensory issues. And since that brings us to the end of the video, please do tell me down below, I mean, tell me anything you want to tell me, but I'd love to have a few discussions about sensory issues, how you recover from them too, because I clearly need some suggestions there now. What your sensory issues are, how they make you feel, anything you want to tell me. I just think this would be a really great discussion, because I'm sure that I have a lot of sensory issues that affect me every single day, and I don't even know what some of them are. So I might read something from one of y'all and be like, that's my issue. You know, it could fix my life. I'm trying to like sort myself out, okay? I've just been really struggling to like research anything into it, because it's all fucking aimed at kids and how they respond and how they react. And, you know, I'm glad that there's people out there trying to help autistic children, but help me. No, but I would love to have a discussion about it. I'd love to hear whatever you have to say about it. And I think it'd be a good time. So if you enjoyed this, please do like and subscribe and that. This is going to be a regular series. I've got a few episodes planned now. So you want to know when they're going up, don't you? Like and subscribe. That's that for this video. If this is the first video of mine you see, and there's going to be a playlist somewhere here of like the other videos I've made about autism, so you might want to check that out. I don't know. But whatever you do from here, I hope you have a lovely day. I hope you have a fantastic day. And me and Jodie are gonna go and snuggle, huh? We're gonna go snuggle together, baby girl. Come on then.